Okay, good afternoon. Welcome back. So you are almost halfway through the course. Now you have to get working a little bit more seriously. So these 2 hours we will do a lot of activities. One is the case. We will spend the next last 1 hour, little more than an hour on the case. So we will do a little bit thorough analysis compared to what we did yesterday. So I will expect that even if you working in groups, you divide who is working on which question, and I will ensure that all of you do some work. Right? And then in the first half, we still have little bit of things to discuss from the previous lecture. So I will cover scope 3 and LCA, because in the case also there are some questions about life cycle analysis and materiality assessment. So we will talk about those, and then we will go to the case. But before that, even there is a small exercise on LCA. You can again divide into two groups. One of you can look at the previous question which I had talked about these companies. One group can still work on these. So looking at Schneider Electric, Unilever and Tata Group, those who are interested. And others, I will tell you, there is a small exercise on doing an LCA, and then we will go to the case. Okay. So before we go to that, even this scope 3, we are not going into the lot of details about it, but this is very important. Most companies across the supply chain now, measuring the carbon footprint within their company is not enough. They are expected to now measure scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 emissions means across the entire supply chain. So this, as you can imagine, is very difficult exercise. They don't have a lot of data coming from all the raw material and sources, but they have to make an attempt. Even as we all already seen, making a first attempt, even some quantitative indicators is important. Again, this is a PwC report. They are showing why this is important, because one is customers want this. Then suppliers are also playing a role. Many cases suppliers know, because it is their process, so they will have some idea about some things. So collaborative work with suppliers is very much important in making this work. Investors, we have talked about this, they expect companies to disclose this information, because this is what will determine what is the overall carbon footprint across the chain. And there are obviously reporting guidelines and directives and regulations. So there are always, we are seeing four things: consumer, investors, reporting and regulatory authorities, and sometimes the other part of the supply chain, they can work with you to actually make it work. But just to give a snapshot of the complexity of task at hand, I am not an expert. I know many companies are doing this. This is just for a automobile company an example. You can imagine what is the level of complexity here. So there are a lot of raw materials coming, and in a car there will be thousands of parts, right? There are, starting from tires and windshields, with the still bigger parts, to individual small components. So for each of these, we need to measure the emission produced by the suppliers during their manufacturing process. We are still starting at component level. This itself is a big question of where do we start? Do we really start from the mines and metals and all the petrochemical products? Ideally, it should be like this. Then it comes to the components. Then there is a transportation happening, all of these transportation coming to a final assembly plant, wherever it is. Your internal production process, that is not part of it. Then it again, there is a outbound distribution where there is emission happening, whether it's through road or rail, or through many times also across continents through ship. Selling of used products, that also ideally should be part of it. So when people are buying your car and driving it over the life cycle of usage, that means there has to be electronics to sensors to measure this. Over its life cycle, what is the fuel it has consumed and what is the greenhouse emissions. Finally, at the end of life, when the car is scrapped, what is the process and how much emissions it is generated. So this will possibly take years before we reach that most companies are able to do this, but they are all making an attempt to start off with maybe some key numbers, and they cannot do this in entirety, but this is an exercise most companies are doing. And these things cannot be done without any digital technology, right? If particularly, let's say we are buying a car and companies need to measure, that means they need to know what is the kilometers we have traveled, and this has to be real time available. They will not come and ask us through surveys, right? So there has to be mechanisms from where they will get. Similarly, suppliers, they cannot do surveys to find out. There has to be measures online real-time measures where they can do this and monitor this. Survey data, as we know, this can be something tampered with, and whatever people are filling up, we don't know. So there has to be process to do it. So this is a long journey. In the next 5 years in your career, you will see more and more advancements happening. But there are, I see a lot of companies, startups also doing work on this consultancy on specifically on this scope 3 measurement and reporting. One key element of enabler for this to make happen is life cycle analysis, which is going on for many years. Again, this is not fully scientific, so some part of it is subjective, but many companies have attempted, at least for their part of their processes, they have measured LCA. So LCA is a sophisticated way to measure the total environmental impact, right, at every stage of life, obtaining raw materials and through it. And this extension of it throughout the supply chain is the what you are calling scope 3 is only about emissions. But this is not just emissions. LCA is a broader in that LCA measures everything. It's also water consumption, energy consumption, everything. Right? But so the starting point for this is, one is obviously you decide what is the scope of it, but creating the total inventory of inputs and outputs. What are all the raw material coming in? In a manufacturing context, it's easy. People already have a bill of materials. They know what are all the inputs coming into a product. And then there are some outputs. Each input creates, there is a processing and there is output happening. That output goes to somewhere else. That process flow is already available. But then what is the environmental, what is the greenhouse gas emission from that? What is the water footprint from that? Everything is measured and controlled. Then evaluating the potential environmental impact associated with all of these inputs. Why we do this? Obviously, we are doing all of this exercise to find out what are the areas of opportunities for improvement, where our consumption is more, where we can reduce it, what is the best way to do it. Many of these, as we know, comes through design. So either design of the product that decides lot of the things about downstream what will happen as the product is produced, and some of it is in the process when we are actually manufacturing the product. What is happening. So there are a lot of things which design for environment and design for sustainability is also a concept which is going on for many years. In engineering, we are taught about this design for X, design for assembly, design for circularity and sustainability. But there are many new things, new materials being developed, alternate materials which are more biodegradable, recyclable. And the bigger, when I talk about design, modular design helps that people can remove if something fails, you need not really throw the entire product, right? You can just take out a single part which fails and repair it and refurbish it. There is a trade-off. Now we are also talking about 3D printing. So 3D printing, normally we are making an integral design. Many of you are not from technical, but let's say a product has multiple 20, 30 parts. What 3D printing allows is you can combine many of these parts together into a single piece, but then it is going to a more integral design. That means if that thing fails or breaks, then the entire thing, the cost is also replacement and service is also high. So there is always a trade-off. In general, also 3D printing might require less energy, but the manufacturing process of 3D printing itself is very energy intensive. So nothing can be said that it is 100% going to be better, right? So always some analysis have to be done to find out which is the best way. When you are also doing different design changes, you must assess what is the real impact in terms of environment. But once we have done this, whatever level you have decided you will do this, if you have two different products within the same company, two different designs are being developed, before launching the product itself, they can decide that which will have a higher, better LCA, better environmental performance based on that, and based on that they can again continuously try to upgrade and modify the design. So LCA process helps to narrow down the area where these biggest reductions is possible. As I said, always it is better to do it at an early stage, at the design stage. Let's say after you have designed and developed the product, still as you are going through the manufacturing process, again you will find out some opportunities for improvement. This is an ongoing process, it's a dynamic process. Every year and literally every month you have to collect this data and then see where there are opportunities for improvement and do it. There is a reading which was given about the materiality assessment. Have you got that? It should be there in the morning itself I had shared. Now this materiality assessment is not the technical part of the real material assessment, but this is the process of prioritizing things, right. So, I will let me show the reading, should also be there. We can quickly also discuss that. This document you must have, right? Yeah. So, this is what the essentials of materiality assessment as a strategic tool. Before companies go for LCA, this is advisable that they do this materiality assessment. Right? This is more about the process of managing the process of doing an LCA or doing further analysis. This is mainly about a prioritization tools, because there are many things. LCA can become very complex, right. So, we need to understand the purpose and scope, identify the different topics, categorize it and then prioritize it. And then use stakeholder management. Before we start a formal LCA or a more detailed analysis, we need to understand what is the scope. There are different kinds of materials which is used, but where do we prioritize is the activity. Will you spend a few minutes just quickly browsing through this and see what you get from this, right? And then they have given some recommendations. It's also a challenging exercise here.
So, sir, you have this tool in your lab, life cycle assessment software. Are you using?
No, we are not using, at least I have not. I think some colleagues might be using it. I don't teach this so much.
Expensive tool.
Ah. So people are writing papers using those using, and I think at least in some engineering departments they must teach this as part of, particularly as part of design. You know, at that stage when they are designing a product, they should do this assessment. Yeah, companies are surely using.
I think this free trial version is also there
Mm.
for 15 or 20 days, I think.
Mm.
So one of my student, he did dissertation with me only
Mm.
for 2-3 months.
Mm.
But then we did for piece of cloth, we did the cradle to grave approach.
Mm.
How much energy we are consuming,
Mm.
and then impact on the. It helps to calculate the impact on the society, I think also.
Mm.
All the three parameters.
Yes, some part of it is subjective. They ask you to give some weight and so on. But wherever data is available, you can do it. But it doesn't help in collecting the data you have to get. Na? Once you put in, then it can. So it asks to create what is the global warming potential. Those things it can calculate.
So input, if we will talk about the kind of like how much energy we are using, so units you will enter, automatically it will calculate if this energy source is thermal power station or hydro power station, automatically it will calculate how much for per unit, how much pollution is being generated.
Greenhouse, those things, yes.
on
That is the
environment,
benefit.
everything.
Yes.
So this can be done like mandatory, like ingredients information we are displaying on the packaging. This can be done so that I think.
I have seen even in some newspapers, Guardian or so, they were trying to promote this for consumers. You should also know to how do we change our personal habits. तो आप ये कर रहे हो तो what is the carbon footprint?
We can pick which one is leaving minimum carbon.
But again, as we are discussing, this is how many consumers are aware, and what is the tool to use to do this. And it cannot be, we cannot do an LCA every day, right? But there has to be a simple tool to kind of, even in a crude way, to make some assessment, right, for any purchase decisions. But before that, this materiality assessment, the name is a little bit confusing. It doesn't mean actually the physical material. It may be that, but this is what is relevant for you for sustainability, or so it's essentially a prioritization. And as all management topics, we try to make it a lot of complex. It is not that complex here. Essentially, it's a prioritization task. But what I found, again, when I talk to companies, this part is very important. When companies start something like this, they think they have to do for everything. It's a very complex task, and sometimes some companies don't even do anything, thinking is very complex. So starting at, don't try to cover the entire value chain for every business unit, every country. For large country, they don't need to do this. They start with one product line maybe, and that value chain, and you perfect it, you do the measurements, and then you move on to another. Plus, and then as I am continuously reflecting, this is again very similar to what Sangyukta was presenting yesterday. You do this, set a group level framework at the corporate center, then identify topics at business unit, and then do it. So always, I mean, if this is left to individual factories or individual locations to do, everywhere we will all come out with our own ideas and nothing will match. So there is a central level kind of coordination needed. So we all have the same assessment. The process is nothing great, but at least you have to follow this process before you kind of do your LCA and other activities, that you identify the different kinds of topics, what is the overall scope, identify the topics, cluster them, then prioritize them, and there are different prioritization tools. Here they have seen a simple scoring, but we use different kinds of multi-criteria decision making approaches we can use to prioritize. Then you again engage management, stakeholder feedback, that part is there. So we move on.
But for these kind of assessments,
Yeah.
how frequently should a company do it? Like, doing it annually is also not, desirable.
The materiality assessment does not need to be repeated. As I said, for a particular product category, this overall assessment will remain same unless the product undergoes major change. But within that product, once you have done this, you have to do it, follow up with an LCA. That LCA has to be conducted almost every year, preferably, right? Something, because you are also trying to improve. So you have done this, you got some data, then you find some areas of improvement, you will improve it, then you will need to see what has happened, right? So that's why the LCA, plus whenever some new changes are happening, either you changed your supplier or you change some of the transportation options or design things, the impact of all of this you need to see in the LCA. But as I said, everything after a product is launched becomes difficult. So for any new product now they should do this at the launch stage itself. So they know what is the expected impact at that stage, and maybe they have multiple design options. At this stage they consciously choose a one. There will be trade-offs between cost and other technical characteristics as well as the sustainability, and they have to figure out what is the best way. It cannot be best in everything. So maybe they will choose something which has reasonably lower environmental impact compared to other things. Now once this is launched, once it is in the process, manufacturing is going on, supply chain, the interesting thing is supply chain is never involved at this early stage of decision making, right? So still procurement people, others will not be involved. It is almost given to them, and then when the product is launched, you start doing an LCA, you will find out that the manufacturing process is intensive, or your supplier is not using non-renewable energy, or your distribution options is a lot of emission happening in transportation. Then you have to find out ways to improve. If your supply chain people are already aware that this is what we need to do, when they select suppliers, when they choose transportation options, they will have to decide this at an early stage. That's why we always emphasize early
Because
stage.
that impacts the scope 3, part.
That impacts
Ah.
scope 3. Changing anything later on is much more costlier and difficult. Once you have set up everything, then you do an LCA and find out ये तो खराब result आ रहा है, तो उसके बाद change करने के तो मतलब it's a very difficult task.
Maybe while picking the raw material.
Raw material source.
If we have multiple options.
हाँ.
So like aluminum or copper,
Huh.
we are using so as alternative also sometimes to be more efficient, energy efficient. So then we can do at that time only the analysis.
But this is a big question. How many companies even in their R&D at that design stage they are doing? For maybe this product is not a completely new product. Most cases it is an extension or a variant, and this material has always been used. Why do we change? Always that thing comes. So people are reluctant to change. But then if you do this LCA, that means and senior people in the companies will not be aware of this. They have never done this. Junior people may know. So that's why all these things, even in 3D.
Sometimes maybe intentionally also they don't want to change because then because anyhow they are using those products impacting the environment. So if they will display this information, so the competitors are not displaying it, so that will play against them.
Yes.
But once
But even if they don't, even for your sake, you should do that analysis. उसके बाद
but
तो
if we do it mandatory to display this information, like we are displaying like ingredients, whatever inside it. So then maybe it will be helpful. Then customer has to play that role that decision making is important.
Again, I am giving examples of how things are taught in school. So when our children learn to look at the ingredients of food items packaging from like class 1, class 2, they know much more what is there in the bread. I don't even know what is refined palm oil, unsaturated palm oil and all these things. No? So our children know because they are taught in the... So they are asked to look at these ingredients, what is the environmental impact, and then they know. So see, the ingredient things are very important. We came to know much later in life that these things are there. So. Okay, so now we will break into two groups, as I said, 2 or 3, whichever. So there is one exercise we will do on this LCA part. We will not have data, but just from your understanding or little bit, if you can search on Google, we can do. So let's say this is a dahi or yogurt tub, right? So it can be a plastic lid, plastic packaging. The process we know. There is a extraction of different kinds of raw materials are being used now. Now this is just an example. The video, let me see. It shows. Let us see the video first.
As the Earth goes round, you may have thought about our planet and what it needs most, a more sustainable future for everyone. And that's what everyone wants, including our friend Kim. Nothing like sleep to recharge the batteries.
Getting better, huh?
Freshwater reserves are increasingly scarce on the planet and in Kim's home. Sources are also scarce. Think about resupplying. And it's difficult to choose from so many options. You may think that this yogurt container has a very short life between the supermarket and the trash can. But who said that's how the story ends? And who said the supermarket was the start? There have already been many phases in this product's life cycle, and many more are still to come. To better understand how this works and its impacts, a very efficient tool exists: the life cycle assessment. You want an example? Let's analyze the cycle of the very same yogurt pot. Everything starts with the extraction of the raw materials. Among other things, oil is used to make the plastic pot that will protect its contents. There's also the milk used to make the yogurt, the strawberry for flavor, the aluminum foil lid to seal in the product. There's lots of different processes. And each one has various kinds of impacts on the environment. And the cycle is only just beginning. At various moments, there's need for transportation. Then there's storage and distribution. It's a long ways to reach the consumer. And like I said before, the story doesn't end with the trash can. The pot can be recycled and used to make a new product, with the cycle restarting, or more precisely, continuing. LCA provides a rigorous analysis of the environmental impacts of all stages of the production process. This analysis helps manufacturers make decisions that help improve processes, products, and services. As you can see, every element of the universe, including ourselves, has a life cycle. Now that you've seen how it works, you won't be able to resist paying attention to the life cycle of every little thing around you, and to compare the impacts that each product has in order to make conscientious choices. For real.
We don't consciously think of, right? There is so many things, even a simple, maybe an Amul yogurt cup, how much is, and people never used to understand what supply chain is. Luckily after COVID they know. So much work goes on in making a simple product which we take it for granted. So much raw material, so many people involved, so much of emission involved in the process just to get a simple day-to-day use product in our hands. So that is the overall message of the usefulness of this tool. Now what I will...
My doubt is, like you have shown this video, now milk is coming from farmer.
Yes.
So there we are starting. But how we are getting that milk, we are feeding the cow.
Huh?
And then for that we have something...
Also
yes,
feed.
in the field.
Yeah.
And then farming is also producing
Yes.
carbon footprint.
Yes.
And then for that we are using so many different machines.
Hmm.
Let's come to tractor when we are using.
Ah.
Then tractor so many different components. And
Yes. Yes,
where
that
the
is
supply chain
why this is very important. Where do we start? That is a decision which a company has to take, and they will tell we have done from this to this end only. We have neglected this part, but literally it can go on. It's almost like an infinite.
connecting every
Ah,
industry.
ah. Then literally it's not possible. They will say we will start with farming. Whatever happen, cattle feed we are not considering. So whatever, wherever ideally possible to collect data from realistically, you should do. You should not fake it and not tell we have done everything. This is our picture, and you are comparing, right? So it doesn't matter so much if you are using the same process to compare different things, and every company literally. That's why industry standards are also important. Let's say some of you are from dairy industry, right? So then every company is in the dairy industry. If they decide they will follow the same, then it's okay. And if some company might play the game, they will say, oh, we will go one step behind and we will do more. That's fine, but then the comparison gets lost. LCA is primarily used for this benchmarking, comparison purpose. So right now, like we have for supply chain the score, this LCA has also not become standard, but hopefully it will become, at least industry-wise, there will be a norm. Where do we start, where do we end, right? Where it is realistically possible. So let's do this simple exercise. Not just plastic paper, I will also add our cloth bags, which is much more common in India. Right? Can we try to make an assessment when we are going for shopping? What we will do? There are different governments are also taking policies. Many countries have banned single-use plastics, right? So we inherently assume that single-use plastics are bad. That's fine. So which bag out of these we will think have the highest environmental impact over the course of its life? Not just one time we are using it, but let's say how many times we want to use of these three items: a plastic bag, a plastic bag, or a paper bag, or a cloth bag. We can follow. I will give you some guidelines, then you can work on this. So broadly you can follow this process: so extraction and processing of raw materials, manufacturing, packaging, use and reuse, disposal, and transport and distribution. What is the thing? You can now do this for the three and come up with your own score with some justification. Right now we don't have data, and see where do you reach out to. And this kind of analysis has been done. When governments come up with these policies, many countries, and even in our country, we have banned on paper the single-use plastics. What is the real impact? Remember, we are trying to talk about the life cycle usage. So that means we have to decide the plastic bag, how many times we can actually use it before it breaks. Paper bag is very quickly it gets, but the cloth bag will remain for many things, right? If all of you want to do this exercise, fine, or if some of you think it's not, you can do this previous exercise of comparing Tata, Schneider and Unilever, their strategies also. Then we will move on to the Welspun case, which we are doing 4 o'clock, no? Yeah. Actually, there is also a fourth option. Many cases, now we have also seen that we can take our own containers, and we don't need to, even buying grocery, they don't need to give us. We can take our whatever container we want, even if we are buying rice or wheat or some dal, we can actually bring our own glass containers. There are some shops in UK, Europe I have seen, they sell everything loose, which is very common in our context. A lot of Kirana stores anyway used to sell loose. We will just take our container or bag and do it. And glass is slowly also making a comeback. It's becoming a fashionable. It's also durable, it remains.
how should we do the scoring?
So there has to be some data. I mean, if data is not given here, but if you can try to search to see whatever, and based on that you give the score. So whether this is a high impact, high environmental impact, high means actually they'll say, so low impact I will give low score, but if it's high, but you have to collect some. So what are the raw materials used for plastic bag? What kind of plastic is it? It's a HDP or LDP, different types of plastics are there. What is the process of producing that plastic? It comes from, always comes from crude oil. What is the processing? There will be some data available, and then we have to make an assessment, right? Formally, if a yeah, company has to do, a government has to do, they have to do this analysis. We don't have right now, let's say we don't have the data, but if you quickly search, you might get something, and then convert that to a score. You don't have a lot of time, let's say another 5-6 minutes, you make an attempt at least between two, or either plastic or paper or plastic or cloth, and see. Then I will show you what the results are. I have some data, I didn't give you the data now, but this was an analysis which was done anyway. So.
So I have chalked out the process, but the scoring part.
Yeah, no, yes. Scoring, this is not the way to score actually. This is a crude way. It has to be backed with real data, and then we don't need to
Also
score.
depends how many bag, what, that quantity also.
No, right now let's say one, right? One for each. Typically a shopping consideration, right? Or a company, when they are changing the packaging, let's say from plastic to paper or cloth, how will they decide? It's for a single unit use, but over the life cycle. Life cycle analysis means it's over the life cycle of full usage. There is lot to know and lot to learn. None of us are also aware, right? Unless somebody is doing this as part. This is like a full-time job. In a company, there should be a group of people doing LCA. This is not possible for us to be expert in everything or every kind of product. But at least the method of what should be done, and there are tools available, we should be aware. But all of the things which we are discussing here is a food for thought. I have put many questions, right? I will encourage you go back and do these things, whatever you are interested in. And if you want to again write back to me anytime, you can do that. If you have done those work, send me, and I will also have a look, and we all learn together in this process. Otherwise, everything is not possible to do in this short time. Those who have done or thought about something, what do you think, based on your initial thought and analysis without having a lot of data, which one will be better?
So obviously the cloth bags.
Why?
So main thing is like if we see the disposal, either we can recompose them or recycle them. And usage also, it can be used for many times. Even more than plastics.
Yes,
When
yes.
plastics after
A
few
few,
uses, maybe
yeah,
10 to 12 times, it will attract dirt and everything.
Yeah.
But in case of cloth bags, it can be washed and
Yeah.
used. But again, water will be,
Yeah, so
water usage will be there.
But also
even-
cotton production, you
even
have to,
production also
cotton
it
production you
requires
cannot
water.
discount, it is very water intensive actually.
For dyeing and bleaching
Yeah.
purposes.
The only, I think the major difference comes because of reuse. If you just look at one time use, cotton will not be, because cotton production is very resource intensive, right?
And this is the disposal of like cloth bag. It's depend fully upon the nature of material which is used
Ah.
to make that particular product.
Ah.
Like
If it's a
recycling
pure
part.
cotton, then it's different, but it's not be pure cotton.
And
So,
incineration, the process is like something else. If it
Ah.
be mixed with non-recyclable
materials.
so that will be
Sorry?
like
Jute. Used to be older days more jute.
So this can be one point. And for manufacturing and packaging also, like it required other things like weaving and all those things are there in this process. So we cannot compare exactly the better one, but if we see as per the usage of the cloth
Yeah.
bag, it will be like more. But
Yeah.
ultimately it will also hampering the environment.
Yeah.
And the disposal part and all.
Yes. So when the point of this exercise is, this is not so easy to evaluate. We assume lot of things, right? Even if for such a simple thing, imagine for a complex product how difficult it is. For a car if they have to do, for even an AC if they have to do, washing machine, all these so many different parts, all the processes. But this is important. Unless we do some measurement, we will never come to know what is the because we have always assumed and we have followed this linear approach that okay, we will buy and this use and throw culture we had developed at some point of time. For this example, I will show. I think this was actually developed somewhere in UK at least. They had shown this as an example. This is almost given as an example for consumer awareness. As you were saying, this is. Let me show you. Yeah. So this assessment, so mass, first of all, what is the mass, right? How much material was used? So in this case, average they had found the normal single-use plastic bag is HDPE bags, and it weighs kind of 8 grams, 8.12 grams. Okay. The reusable plastic bag, there are also this kind of little bit thicker reusable plastic bag, LDPE bags. There it's kind of 34.94 grams. Cotton bags, kind of 183 average, but they say the raw material is cotton, growing cotton, soil cultivation, fertilization, so lot of things are going involved in this. Now they calculated, though roughly these are kind of average given this, single-use plastic bag was 0.758, 0.932 you can see. So cotton bag, energy consumption during production is less. But there is a lot of waste generated, right, in cotton. So everything is out of the cotton which is used, what is produced in actually goes into the bag is very less. Lot of it is wasted. So wastage is high.
So reusability also can be taken into consideration while we are transporting
Yeah.
to the supplier. The cotton will be heavier
Yeah.
in comparison with single-use plastic.
Yes. 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 This is only production. After this, transportation will come. Yeah. Transportation also has an impact. So this is energy consumption during production. Then this is the transport. Right? Transport is big. So you have to consume many different scenarios. Single-use plastic bags, where it is produced. Is it? They assume something China, Indonesia, Malaysia, whatever. Then the bag producer to this. If it comes in lorry, if it comes in sea, what is the distance covered? Then it goes to supermarket. Another thing. For all these different kilometers traveled. Right? Then once we know the kilometer travel, the kind of fuel usage, we can then using these LCS softwares, we can find out what is the overall greenhouse gas emissions. Again with this, and there are ways to find out the overall greenhouse global warming potential, what is the overall CO2 equivalence starting from production, transportation, everything. So there they found that single-use plastic bag is actually 1.578. Reusable plastic bag, if it's no reuse, then fine. But if it's used 5 times, it's 0.385. And cotton bag actually no reuse is very high, but if it used 173 times it becomes kind of equivalent. 1.57 you can see it will be better than both of these. So closely, but 173 times may be a little bit of a stretch, but 30, 40, 50 times, but in our mothers, grandmothers time they would have surely used this many times. More than that. So this was the overall finding from this study, that number of times a bags needs to be used to match global warming potential. Each of these are kind of equivalent. So if it's a single use bag, no reuse, then this is the case, and so on. Right? But then they also did this testing to destruction. So as we said, plastic bags cannot resist too much. So they did a testing of that, at what point of time it will break. So capacity of, on an average single use bag had a capacity of 18 kg, lasted for 17 minutes and 32 seconds with maximum force. Average reusable bag 18 minutes 30 seconds, and so on. So fair comparison is also with finally this. So average volume per bag, average number of items per bag, number of bags needed per month. This is very detailed. Now we are going to very detail. Number of bags needed per month for average shopper, and where it makes equivalent. So weight, volume, everything considered, and it's found out the total number of bags needed to carry a month shopping 483 items in an average. This is again UK. Ours will be very different, right? And end of life process, and how this is again we have not considered disposal. There is a disposal available after this. What do we do? Landfill, incineration, mechanical recycling. So this is not easy. Even such simple thing, you can make it as much detail as possible. As level, it is complex. So for any other kind of, this is possibly the simplest of products, right? Still we are struggling and we cannot do it. Literally we cannot do it unless we have data for so many of the things. So the point is more advanced softwares, etc., and actual calculations are needed. There are a lot of things. We are not going into the details, but that is needed to make this assessment. But slowly, I think in our lifetime we will see that this will become very common. This is kind of, we can quickly have a tool. Maybe you will have a startup who can do this, make shopping easy, do LCA for all our shopping and find out. Then the companies will also wake up, right? Now if consumers become powerful, they can do this, then you know.
So you have said that we have a, like in UK there is a culture of taking the containers.
Yeah.
So in the Indian context, like it is possible to have this, because we have the tendency what others will say. If we take the container to the shop, like what others will say, "Arey, ye to iskili le aaya, you don't have anything else." So for this to happen in India, it will take some time. Like to take the container to the shop, and sometimes what, according to the rates we used to buy, suppose if we purchase 2 kgs or 5 kgs, something, it's depend upon the usage. So for that one also we'll need something to take. So that in our
but you have realized that they have become more like us and we have become more like them.
that's the point. Like,
So it is a part of development cycle which all goes on. So they are now adapting more, they are becoming more vegetarian, we are becoming.
we like when we do the things, we'll see others first, like what they will say, what our neighbors will say. So that's the little change we have to make in this.
Yes. But always, in ours, when we were young, there was no such thing, right? We always used to carry our jhola and then go there.
Go to the market and
Actually, we are also going back.
Yes.
You know, like you were saying, I remember that during the olden days, we used to carry something, go to the khatal to get
Milk.
from the
Yes.
guy
The
and the
containers.
dress. And so, but now, you know, we are having
Convenience comes with some sacrifice, right? Now we want everything at doorstep.
we used to have this, you know, this paper cloth, you know, loose, you know, we used to get it. There was no plastic at that time.
Yeah.
But what happens is, you know, there is a behavioral shift also. So always when we used to go out, we used to carry a bag. That, you know, in our, I mean, like if we are coming back, then we can bring those things.
Yeah.
Now people are just going like that, and
Yeah.
then, you know, coming back, they want something, then you go and say,
Yeah.
"Sir, even if they actually establish some standards, government says that shopkeepers, you don't keep this plastic,
हाँ
but they say that भाई हम अगर नहीं रखेगा तो लोग लेगा नहीं हमसे.
हाँ
हाँ.
cannot.
So that behavioral part is a very important.
And it is a simple part of planning, as you said. If you are going for shopping, going out, we know we might go for shopping. Lot of it is also dependent on the home minister of the house. You suddenly go for shopping, so you keep some bags with you, cloth bags, right? Because we don't carry, then we are forced to take that plastic. You always have cloth bags at home.
And there are punitive measures also taken that governments actually say that agar, even to the shopkeepers that if we find it we will kind of but they keep it surreptitiously that there are what will they do? Customers are also demanding acha you don't have that then I am going to
Yes, it is true.
But for a developing country like India, if something already has implemented, then stepping back to the paper that going to it will create a bigger impact economically. That will hamper the livelihood also.
Yes, nothing is easy, as madam was also said yesterday. Going back, doing any kind of change is difficult. Already we cannot blanketly say this is good or bad and this is what which we should do. But with this kind of analysis, if we say that this is definitely better, that awareness has to be built up and slowly people will realize. Some generation, older people, in this case older people will actually be comfortable with using this, but in other cases they may not. Some other things.
If some subsidies or some type of compensation is given, then maybe the companies will be eager more to.
But everything it is not left to government. The subsidies doesn't work. Then there will be too much of expectation. Everything government will give something. No, these things government cannot do. Government means it is our money. They will loot something else and give it back to us.
government doling out money.
Yesterday she was telling, no, DBTs never worked, direct transfers.
Some ministries like they are okay for change, for others they don't want to. So we
Yeah,
cannot do anything for that.
Yes.
So I have seen a video on internet where people used to make bags with the use of with the bark of banana tree.
Ah.
And I think it is a better, it is a better way to use the resources because
Yes.
banana tree only give fruit only once, and after that there's no use of it. So
Yes, there are many such things which are indigenous locally we can do, which is not done in other parts of the world, and those will be much better. So in banana tree, Bengalis we even eat it. It's mocha. Okay, so let's now move to the Wellspun case. So we have already read it, but go through now. What I will say is, before that maybe there is a quick thing. Yeah. Before we go to the case, I thought I will show you. This you will not have seen. Where do you think this is? This is all textile waste. Good guess. Yes, can you imagine? It's one of the most pristine places. This is Atacama Desert in Chile. This is the biggest textile dump in the world. If you look at National Geographic, there are some series, there are some pictures there. And mostly this is Chile, means this is all coming from US. Mostly North American textile waste being dumped in the southern part of Chile, and which is a very biodiverse natural region. Once they have started doing this, and in Chile government possibly didn't even know that this is happening, because nobody really goes there.
They are the one who cleans the rest of the world.
Yes, they are not at all.
They change their fashion with the hour. That's the problem with you.
So fast fashion too much. Okay, let's go to what our homegrown Wellspun has to say to us. Yeah, so these are the questions. Yes, yes. This was also shared with you, they said. Priyankshi. Case questions, na? केस स्टडी के साथ क्वेश्चन भी था. Again, I think it will be better if you work in groups and you divide the questions, but whichever one you are doing, you do little bit thorough analysis. इतना बड़ा ग्रुप नहीं है. We have 5 people group maybe. अच्छा. Some of you might be knowing this, but this was shocking when I first heard about this. So each pair of genes takes 1500 gallons of water to make. This is the perspective, right?
So why we are choosing from the three options like plastic or cloth bag or paper bag? So each and every option has some merit and demerit.
Yeah.
So on the basis of durability and biodegradability, we are choosing
cloth bag, but there is nothing.
No, it is not based on biodegradable. As I showed you, no, it is based on that LCA. What is the overall environmental impact, and also how many times it will be used. Then they showed if you use a cloth bag most 150 times or more, it is kind of better compared to plastic. If you use less than 2-3 times only you are using a cotton bag, then it's not useful because cotton takes lot of water and other things. Energy emission is high. So this is based on the LCA we decided. Right?
So there will be who, even if we are using clothing bag, apart from cotton, there are other materials.
Other, yeah, if it is well assumed it's a pure cotton, but this can be mixed with other things. Yeah. Mm.
They also generate methane, probably.
Mm.
That's what the methane reporting is based on.
Mm. Mm.
So the US brand Gap, which is there,
Mm.
they are trying to make another process wherein they are using dry dye
Mm.
for the denim,
Mm.
and they are saying they are claiming that they are using 20% less of the
Okay.
water usage, and they have reported a saving of 400 or 410 gallons, I forgot, last year.
Mm.
That is what they have reported, but US farm we don't know what
Yeah, so we finally need to see the data. That's why people are very scared. So in Europe now any brand textile will come in 2027, they want that passport. So they will have that chip in the jeans or whatever, you can scan and find everything. They want to see all the data being there.
That's why America and Germany are manufacturing Bangladesh.
Yeah. But the emission footprint in transportation is very high. Lot of things are now produced in Bangladesh, Myanmar. All the things we buy are produced in Asia. Anyway, also some in Africa.
गुजरात में जितने भी धुआं वाली फैक्ट्री है वो गुजरात में नहीं है, वो अदर स्टेट में जितनी वैसी इंडस्ट्री है सब गुजरात में पोल्यूशन नहीं फैला रही।
सर वो डेवलप हो गया, हम लोग को बोल रहे हैं पॉल्यूशन मत करो, ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन।
So इंडिया के अंदर भी एक यूएस छोटा यूएस बन रहा है.
Exactly, sir. Last September, there was a statesman, a yearly statesman, the statesman, they make a meet and they were into this environment and talking about the economic condition of the country. They said that Gujarat is saying like this, but actually the per person, the poor, they are more over there than the other states in the country.
So disparity is
Poor people are
possibly
more
increasing.
over there. So God knows what they are saying.
But the pharma plants are there in Gujarat. They have not closed down. So I used to work sometimes in Bharuch, in Torrent. And they, as I said, they used to do all the hazardous reactions in the night and let all the obnoxious gases out in the night.
Even in Haldia there was this chemical hub,
Hmm.
and that was also a lot of this exhibition, lot of
Hmm.
it affected a lot of the surrounding.
Hmm. Hmm. प्रियांशी 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 एक बार चेक कर लेते हैं सारे चीज़ क्या है। डे वन के ये जो रीडिंग्स वगैरह थे वो भी चला गया ना?
हाँ सब भेजा।
डे वन का चला गया पूरा, फिर
यूनिलेवर नहीं भेजा।
यूनिलेवर नहीं भेजा ना?
और ब्लूप्रिंट जो है ऊपर वाला वो भी नहीं था।
हाँ ये तो यू हैव सेंड ओनली द थिंग्स विच आर ऑन डेस्कटॉप ना? अच्छा ठीक है, तो वही मैं उसी को भी डाल देता हूँ उधर ही।
जो भी फाइनल है आपको डेस्कटॉप पे भी
सब दे देंगे।
फिर वो फाइनल हम ड्राइव में अगर
हाँ ठीक है। और कल का भी ना, आई हैव ऑलरेडी पुट सम 2 डॉक्यूमेंट्स, वो भी आज ही भेज देना उनको। हाँ डे 4 का भी हमने उधर दे दिया. So let me know when you are ready to start. अभी टाइम हो गया 5 मिनट में क्वेश्चन 1 स्टार्ट करेंगे. Sure, we will start now. Question 1. Which group? Question 1 is easy. Question 1. Who is going to discuss?
Here it is.
कोई सी भी whatever language you are comfortable you can speak. हिंदी में ही बात कर लीजिए.
सर इसका की पॉइंट जो है तो ग्लोबल इन्वायरमेंटल चैलेंज और बिजनेस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी एंड ग्रोथ एंड कंज्यूमर डिमांड सस्टेनेबल प्रोडक्ट ऑफरिंग कंप्लायंस एंड ग्लोबल स्टैंडर्ड इम्पैक्ट ऑन कम्युनिटीज स्पेशल मेल.
हाँ तो सस्टेन हाँ ये तो ठीक है बट उसको अगर समराइज करेंगे व्हाट आर द ऑब्जेक्टिव्स जो वेल्सपन अचीव करना चाह रहा है थ्रू दिस सस्टेनेबिलिटी वो क्या क्या होगा. सम ऑफ द थिंग्स यू मेंशन ना कंज्यूमर का तो एक है न्यू ग्रोथ अपॉर्चुनिटीज है और
actually what I think thought was obviously company like Welspun will think about the profitability issues but with the changing environment conditions I mean like what consumer is wanting or what the industry is actually wanting, so they had no option but to go in for I mean even before going in for this measures they actually first this is very important, this materiality map what was done. So sometimes what happens is like you gave that example of this cloth and so there are some things which we draw from intuition that this will be this. But what they realized was that what they were thinking were important might not be the real case. And that led them to actually think, long term for that, LCA, life cycle assessment, to do that exercise. And for doing that exercise, you have to actually, what you mentioned earlier, that you have to look at the objectives or goals and how the sustainability practices matches with those goals. And then you have to prioritize the issues. So there is that whole,
thing they did.
thing which, and which was, like they had to do in order to realize the benefits or impacts. And at the same time, you have to keep the costs in control in order to be competitive in the market. So,
which is true. But broadly, there can be also multiple objectives. Clearly, they have to do environmental, social, as well as their profitability. So cost efficiency should also come through this. It should not be sacrificed through sustainability.
So
they should be able to get more revenue through better products or more market, new growth opportunities, maybe in international markets. They are not still so much prominent in international markets. So through all of this, they will expect revenue growth.
So
they will expect cost efficiency. They will expect meeting all regulatory requirements. So all these things are there.
That is part of the, that ESG, they will, kind of prioritize which are the areas, then draw KPIs out of it, and then, have some specific targets or metrics to follow.
But from that materiality analysis, did you think, is there any comment? Was that perfect?
No, it was not perfect.
Yes.
That is what, like the next level, we had to actually do that.
Yes. So what was some of the shortcomings in that?
Yeah, that...
was that in a question? No.
No, it was not in that question. I think that is
that is the question 3.
Other part.
That is question 3. But anyway, since we started discussing, let's discuss about that materiality map and LCA. Who are the people who are supposed to discuss that? Question 3.
Question 3. Who was discussing? Question 3 and question 2.
ठीक है, question 2 भी कर लो. Since we started discussing, we thought otherwise fine. We can go by sequence. Question 2, question 3, whichever one.
Question 3, whose group? Your group was question. 4. Then who was doing 3?
3 किसी ने नहीं किया.
Okay.
एक important stage ही miss हो गया LCA में.
Okay, let me try because
when they are doing this materiality mapping, what they saw was the outcome was very different than what they had thought. Their perceptions never matched with the actual scenario, and that is when they thought that instead of going for materiality mapping, let's go for life cycle assessment.
No, so the question was what some of the factors which you asked. So I can point out one or two because I didn't go in detail, but I think, for example, this gender diversity, which I see 4 in the map is very, the importance was shown low, and the potential impact on WILs was also low.
Yeah.
And if I take that, they tried to also address that issue through this, diversity and inclusion part where they actually increase the workforce of women, what they are saying. Specifically, with respect to that SPUN program, they had these 2, product lines. So that was one thing which I can, see that came out. Okay. And also this water consumption part, 15. Okay. So
Consumption was reduced because of that sewage treatment plant which was there in Anjar.
Some of them were, like if I will do a critical analysis, some of them came out okay. Like some factors, like for example, like intuition also sometimes we are correct. Like for example, factor 20 about GSG, greenhouse gas emissions. Okay,
that will always
that
count.
was all. That was all right. But
so the important part is when they think, they still looked at more of the product and the consumer oriented ones, they rated high. But there are certain things. So if you look at which ones were, so top right hand corner, customer satisfaction, product quality, these things. But water management, sustainable sourcing, energy, human rights were not, right?
Exactly.
So, but if you take everybody's views, different stakeholders, that is what you will come to know.
Yeah.
And here they have not shown, but there are ways we use in operations. When we took multiple stakeholders' views and we asked them to even rate, there is a way to reconcile, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gives, either you come up with a consensus or give a single rating, or if different people give different rating, then we can use some fuzzy logic. We can assume some functions and fuzzy, and then we can convert it to a single number and convert. There are ways to prioritize this, but it's clearly it will show when a company does it themselves and then they look at everybody, results will be different. That is the main finding from that materiality analysis.
Again, just in this context, although I mean, since it is dealing with the same industry, I just wanted to know your thoughts. I actually was also speaking to somebody from Aditya Birla Group, again this Pantaloons and etc.
Yeah.
So, like the one of the applications that they are using of blockchain is this traceability of raw cotton. Okay, because normally everybody here says 100% cotton, but it is blended. But that purity of cotton, that also adds value. Like if you have this here in this industry, that if you are sourcing it from Egyptian cotton or etc., you get a, I mean, like I was explaining to my group also, that even if you go to Pantaloons to buy a shirt, you will have a range from
Different
500
varieties.
to 5,000. But I mean, you need to know if you are paying the right value. So one can actually also, but you can't, as a layman, we can't know it.
Sometimes we touch and feel, oh, ye to lag nahi raha hai, pure cotton hai.
That thing, I was saying that if there are 10 customers, they would, only one would probably take the risk of buying a 3,000, 4,000. But if you have this kind of, traceability, then maybe they will end up selling 5
more. Some people will do that.
That would also, like I said, the value proposition.
One of the things in blockchain is this, that traceability will surely induce people to, some of the conscious customers to buy more, right? So that is happening in food as well as in textile, right? So that is a good case. Then in the life cycle analysis, any comments what they did? And we have now understood that this materiality analysis followed by LCA is done. Both are not competing, both have to be done together, one followed by the other. MCA is mainly prioritization, materiality analysis, but LCA is more quantitative, but it also has limitations, right? And depending on, you have to decide where you want to do and so on. It cannot be fully comprehensive, but this is one. The second question was what actions they have taken. That's an easy kind of descriptive question. You can summarize what are the things they have done.
सर एक्चुअली काटन डिफरेंट फार्म से आ रहा थे, तो उसको ट्रेस करना बड़ा मुश्किल था, इसलिए उन्होंने खुद से ही फार्म करना स्टार्ट किया, हार्मफुल पेस्टिसाइड को अवेयर, नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट बैंड केमिकल, और सर उसके बाद इकोसिस्टम मूव्ड अवे फ्रॉम फ्लडिंग बिकॉज वाटर नीडेड मच मोर इन क्वांटिटी. द कंपनी प्रमोटेड मल्टी क्रॉप फार्मिंग. Valdwani Institute of Artificial Intelligence implemented mobile application based on AI solution for early pest detection warning system. Sucking pest pink blowworm. Ballworm. The solution meant that project farms began to receive notification via SMS.
So this removing harmful substances is important because that is actually impacting customer more. When you are washing the clothes, it's these microfibers are released, and that is also harmful for our health. So we don't think about these things, right? But so if the company themselves does it and try to use minimum harmful chemicals, that helps. So that is the thing which is important. Recycling also they did, renewable energy they also did. So any comments, any things which you think they should have done? They seem to have done some work, right? It is quite commendable that they have made a kind of good attempt at doing this across, not just within their process, but they looked at other things. Anything which you think which might be missing or which they could have done?
So they can give awareness or education to the workers related to environment awareness. So that could be very helpful.
That is not explicitly mentioned, but I will assume they have done. Without this, it is not possible to do at this level. So some employee training must have happened at all levels. Otherwise, people also will question. This is a kind of additional work.
Training, so they have also have that social side, that is silkworm farming, then helping the farmers to take loans from the banks and subsidies from the government. They require minimum of paperwork, and that paperwork also requires education. So I think that they have done already, and they have their own patent of WellTrack, most probably using the blockchain technology that you were saying.
Yes.
Even they have raised the remuneration of the farmers, and many of the new, families have also had access to new livelihood, ways of livelihood. So their standard of living have also gone up. So they have done that portion.
Yes.
Treated water, use of technology. Then they have also said that the logistics that they have used, they have preferred railways rather than roads and sea rather than the air. So that also has reduced the greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes.
What about the reverse supply chain aspect? Have they done anything?
No, I don't think that is mentioned. At least it's not mentioned.
That
in
is not mentioned, sir, over
That
here.
is not mentioned. That is also big. What is being returned, and first of all, whether they even reach them, you don't know. No? What is being sold in retail or even other things, whether they finally come to Wellspan. So this is another big thing. So when it is coming from retail, whose responsibility? Is it the retailers who will send it back to them, or is it they will actually collect, or is it consumer has to take it somewhere? That itself is not clear. No?
So they have done that in US. That is what they have mentioned over here. That collection of those end use products, they are doing it in US, but nothing mentioned about India.
Yes. Okay. So the last question was, there are two more questions. One is this STP plant, and then the important thing was also about circularity, right? How they should prepare to be circular. I think they have, this part is still kind of missing. They might be early days, but what is the process they should follow, right? Any thoughts on this?
So they are asking about that STP plant only, what circularity they have already done.
Yes.
So they have taken the wastewater from the neighboring areas, Adipur, Gandhidham and Anjar, and they have used it for their production process. So previously that wastewater used to be released in the sea, which caused water pollution as well as the risk of diseases was high. So that has been reduced, and even they have ensured that the use of fresh water is reduced to zero.
Yes, that is a process, because this they have started in the right way, because internal things they can control. This is in their production process, right? But the circularity really means the product get back and what they do with that product and waste. So that
But
part
sir,
is
they have not mentioned about what are they doing about their own wastewater.
their own product, right?
They are taking the sewage water, but their own water, what they are doing, they have not mentioned about that. So that has to be taken into account.
That possibly, yeah, they might have also done. But what is more challenging is what happens to the product at the end of use. They have said in US, but other parts of India we don't know. But again,
US, they have partnered with startups, sir.
yes,
Yes,
fashion for good. No?
Yes, fashion.
You can
for
also check that.
good. Yes, sir, I'll do that.
Yes. Yes. Anything which the STP plant and the circularity, I think there have to be a process again to do this, not as we have discussed yesterday. It should not be ad hoc. They have started well with the internal things. This was your question? Yeah, please.
So why circularity to reduce waste, environmental waste and greenhouse gas risk? Then comes the market risk. Then also fashion for good, which you have told again. And the steps, I think my friend should tell the steps. Steps.
How?
So basically, I want to add some more point. Apart from minimizing the environmental impact, there are certain points needs to be covered. Like consumer has certain demand. They are expecting sustainable product from the companies. So maintaining their trust. So we should also try to cover up their expectation. And third thing will be building the resilience under the supply chain disruption. So we should also consider into that part. So
Because cotton, there
it
is
will-
also the farming, this is
Yes,
dependent
sir.
largely on
We cannot
whether
rely on
prices
finite
will
element.
change,
Yes,
and so
sir.
yes.
And the third thing, they are also promoting the sustainable cotton farming, collaborating with the farmer. So they are trying their best to promote the circularity within their organization, and it will somehow improve their corporate reputation as well. So it will boost their international standard.
Yes.
And you want to share something?
Sir, one major problem with textile industry is about trends. People always go with trends. So circularity comes in that aspect also, that they should produce more products which are relevant to the target audience. So because nowadays what happening is, when we talk about khadi, only few people are talking about khadi and they want that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't comes in pure form, and if they go totally in pure format, they will lose some consumers.
Yes.
So in that aspect also they have to be circular. to be
Yes,
more-
we always we have at some point of time over these last 20-30 years we have always added variety, more products, because India is also diverse, tastes are different age group. So we have already added different product categories to cater to the needs of the market, but this adds to this environmental problem. They will not drastically cut down their product portfolio, right? They cannot do it, they will lose. But there may be sometimes a rationalization happens. They will say that there is no point in making certain kinds of products. They have to take that decision that we will not do it because it's environmentally very poor. But they may be very few some things like that. They will not totally remove something. But given whatever they have, they are doing. But consumer awareness building is also important. And as a company, they may not be able to do everything. But sometimes with ads and others, it might. Now with social media, some things might stick to the minds of people, and then that will influence people to buy certain kinds of products more, right? With sustainability oriented kind of marketing, they might be able to do such things more. But in general, for this circularity, I think this engaging with external stakeholders, that's why this platform is important, right? Because this is not also, there are many people involved in that process. There are many other players involved in that reverse chain, so they need to anyway collaborate. Plus internal top management support. Maybe their top management have started this sustainability and they have got some results. They might be little bit complacent. They may not push further and do the other things again. And that chance is that many after, I am very keen to see after this case is published what they have really done. Have they really sustained this? Have they gone back? Sometimes because of business pressure and financials, if some quarter they are not doing well, there is a tendency to go back, right? So it's important to track over a period of time, is it really, is the sustainability itself sustained or not? Is it going on or not? But given the work they have done, it's not easy to go back to earlier things. So there has to be some kind of top management support, collaboration with partners. Yes, these kind of studies are actually very much needed, and we don't do it. In Research Scholars also tomorrow I will show some examples. If you take one industry, one company, do very in-depth study, talk to many companies, visit them, collect primary data, use some secondary data, there is a good chance of publishing those kind of stuff. Sometimes we are stuck sitting here, whatever is possible we are doing, right? But this is what makes difference. If we are really passionate about something, go very in-depth. And sometimes there is some, you may be able to get some kind of funding, and if they are also interested, what happens is difference between India and others. Their companies also partly fund, sometimes fully fund PhDs. If they think that work which you are doing is very relevant for them, they will fund, they will at least bear some expenses for them. And this kind of discussion I think now has to happen. Partly it is related to your supervisor and the university. So,
I have come across very good PhD thesis with a single case study.
yes, yes.
And you know, and the good thing is that sometimes I know a professor, I mean like it's a kind of longitudinal.
Yes.
You know, another one comes and you know
Continues, yes. This is very common in Scandinavia, as I said. The master thesis student does the master thesis in one company. Maybe he or she enrolls as a PhD and also continues with that. So it's a very rich data they get. Even if it's a single case study, because it is so detailed, they have so much of internal information, both qualitative data, quantitative data they get, and those papers are published in top journals, because it is nobody else can do. So whenever people read it, they say, okay, this is, he or she is possibly the only people who could have done such a study. You will see. So Swedish people obviously does work with Swedish companies, IKEA, Volvo. Swedish PhD student does research on those companies, and those detailed things you can see nobody else is doing. No? So those things they will publish, but we have so much of interesting things to say to rest of the world, but we don't do. We are pretty much doing the same things again and again sometimes.
Sir, during the production process, they can induct cleaner energy. So it will somehow boost the sustainability.
Yes.
So we didn't mention that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did they mention something? They already had, I think. No? They had. We didn't discuss, but they actually did. Yes. Scrapyard managing, improve energy efficiency.
And sir, also we didn't discuss about, some extent we discussed, like product as a service model. So they are offering the consumer a return program.
Yeah.
So we also didn't cover that.
Okay, good. Just one. Very good. Compared to yesterday, we did analyze a little bit better today, right?
very good group also because all of you participated.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we close here. We will have the quiz. So tomorrow will be my full day tomorrow. All throughout the day I will be there. So tomorrow there will be two cases. One is my own case, is iCure. I have given, Divyangshu will share with you. And the other one is the IKEA case. So iCure and IKEA tomorrow. Should be.